I'm going to throw it over to Rory to get Rory's take on this game, because I feel like as an Arsenal fan, it's hard for me to take my red-tinted glasses off when I look at a game like this. But there are some things I need to get off my chest, and Rory, feel free to tell me if you think I'm being silly. Mikel Arteta's summary of that game, I thought was pretty much spot on. Mm-hmm. But what I can't stand is the fact that he feels the need to mention the Martinelli miss at the end. And I'll explain why. In previous games, he's done this as well, where he's almost tried to justify a disappointing performance by saying, yeah, but we had this moment, X moment with Y player, and that should have meant that we won the game. Instead of everybody having a pop at Gabriel Martinelli, who's been on the pitch for a handful of minutes at that point, and is faced by Kevin Kelleher, who's down at his feet before he can even control the ball, makes a brilliant save. We should focus on the fact that Arsenal have had 2 shots on target in the entire night, that their XG, and I'm not a big XG guy, but is 0.6 on the night. Arsenal were diabolical and non-existent as an attacking force last night at the G-Tech. And this idea that, and maybe he's not doing it with this intention, but this idea that you can focus on one missed chance and say Martinelli's miss is why we didn't win the game when you got so much else wrong is irritating to me.
Yeah, I think you've positioned it quite interestingly, and you're probably correct. But I also think that Mikel Arteta is right. Martinelli, you're insulating him from the criticism that he deserves here. You're being far kinder to Martinelli.
Do you know why?
I don't know why.
Because I have seen that performance from Arsenal many times this season, and last season, and at times the season before, where Arsenal go somewhere, they can't get a foothold in the game because they've prioritised being physical, winning the duels, and then they compromise on the technical level, and you end up turning the game into exactly what a Brentford or a Newcastle at St James's Park or a Burnley at Turf Moor, for instance, would want.
But both things are true, Harry. Both things are true. You're correct. Arsenal were fairly impotent. Arsenal should have been better. Arsenal was second best throughout. All of that is true, but Arsenal should have won the game. Martinelli should have scored that chance in the same way that if Keith Andrews was to come out and say, do you know what? Igor Tudor should have scored that chance where he kind of takes it inside. Amazing recovery tackle. But he took it inside and he took too long. Dilly-dallied on the ball, and ultimately that cost him. I don't think Arteta's appraisal was wrong. And I think that he's allowed to say that Gabriel Martinelli's responsibility when you come on like that, you come on, it's so set up to come on and change the game. The game was fairly ebb and flow, nip and tuck. There was fairly, I'd say Brentford were the better side, but ultimately it could have gone either way. And the draw, where before most of the changes were made, were about right. Somebody then needs to come on. In the way that Ray and Shirky came on against Liverpool and the game changed. In the way that over the years, the brilliant Man City teams, do you remember, well, of course you will, suddenly the game is exactly like the game was for Arsenal versus Brentford. Suddenly Gundogan comes on and they win the game. Suddenly Riyad Mahrez comes on and they win the game. Suddenly Julian Alvarez comes on and they win the game. Suddenly Martinelli comes on and you don't win the game.
But I think it's putting the responsibility of Arsenal's failure to win on a player and on a moment when the other 89 moments were dreadful as far as Arsenal are concerned.
Yeah, I think okay. I think what you think Mikel Arteta is perhaps insulating himself and the squad and throwing Martinelli
100%. on. I'm not saying I don't think that he came out and thought I'm going to throw Martinelli under the bus. I'm not saying that for a second. I think what he's tried to do is somehow justify that performance and almost say it's okay. And I get that as a manager, you don't want to come out and throw people under the bus. You need their buy-in. You need people on side. I get that. And you do try and insulate your players from criticism. But it's almost like he's putting too much weight on that moment for me. Right. And sometimes I hear this stuff from Mikel Arteta and it gets under my skin because if you go back to PSG in the Champions League last season, he came out and said we were the better team over the 2 legs. We weren't. You're trying to engineer a narrative that better suits you.
Don't lie to me.
And you're trying to engineer a narrative here that says, actually, had Arsenal won the game, we would have been decent value for it. No, there was a 20-minute spell at the start of the second half where Arsenal played quite well, when Martin Odegaard came on, but then he completely faded. The selection of Eberechi Eze was clearly not the right one on the day. It didn't work. Trossard on the left side, was that the right choice with hindsight?
Trossard, though, I thought he was actually one of your shining.
In the first half, I thought he was.
Do you know, there was a moment, and I don't want to pick on people either then, if that's the angle, but there was a moment where Trossard steps over the ball so intelligent, Doesn't touch the ball. This is how important.
I know exactly what you mean.
And he lets it run for Martin Odegaard, and Odegaard blazes it over the bar. I think if you're Mikel Arteta, you'd be entitled to say that's a moment. In the way that he's decided to say the Gabriel Martinelli one. It came later, and he should have beat the keeper, really. Great save. But equally, Martin Odegaard, as the club captain, you're playing away from home in a London derby, in a must-win game, in a very intense atmosphere against an excellent side, a combative side. You've got an opportunity like that where the step over has given you, by the modern day standards of the game, acres of space and ample time. And you blaze it over the bar. Yeah,
and I agree. And there was also the other incident where Odegaard plays it into Rice, who should shoot.
Mate, why did he pass to Gyökeres? I think it was pity.
I don't think... I think if it was someone else, I think if it was Martin Odegaard playing that pass to Gyökeres, I'd have agreed with you. But because it was Declan Rice, who, by the way, was marching around the pitch.
No, he was Roy the Rovers. Yeah. That interception, at the other end, I just don't know how he did that. And then he retrieved possession. Like, when you run back and you make that kind of brutal interception, you clear it, don't you? He didn't. No. He played it into space and kept the ball in. Really, really impressive from Rice.
Yeah.
But there were too many abject performances from Arsenal. If you were to do a man of the match award, you probably give it to that Van der Berg, right? Then you probably give it maybe Henry. Then you probably give it Katara. Then you might talk about Then you might talk about Rice. Maybe talk about Rice higher. But if you were to do 8 men of the matches, 7 of them Brentford.
Yeah.
And that, from Arsenal's perspective, is completely unacceptable.
Completely agree.
And if Arsenal don't learn from it, I don't think we're smashing the emergency glass just yet. But if Arsenal don't look at that and use it as a warning sign and go, look, lads, we are in a really strong position, really privileged position that we have put ourselves in. We have a cushion over Man City and we've earned that cushion. We're top of the league for a reason. There is nothing to panic about. But if that performance doesn't wake up Arsenal, fans maybe, players certainly, Arteta, they're not going to win the league. And it's the first time that I've said, by the way, I thought Liverpool were going to retain the league at the beginning of the season. Very quickly that became clear that it wasn't going to happen. After that, I said Arsenal are going to win the league. And at various points, I've said they're going to win it at canter. They're going to win it. They're going to be 10 points clear. This is the first time, just a moment ago, I said Man City win the league. First time I've said it all year. We are in February. Wouldn't that be Man City to find rhythm, to find form at the perfect time?
Yeah, it would be. And the hope from an Arsenal perspective is that obviously having that 4-point cushion is going to mean that we can hold them off and we can go on and win thing. But again, I don't want to dwell too much on the point of that one moment with Martinelli, but I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted him to come out and say, as a team tonight, we were nowhere near the level that we needed to be. Now, he might have said all of this stuff behind the scenes. In fact, I'm confident he would have really laid into the players after the game because there was too many abject performances. And I'm aware enough to know that what he says in front of a camera and behind a microphone is not what you're going to get in the dressing room.
It's the front line.
Exactly.
It's the front line.
But this is the point. When you look at that front line, Trossard, for me, should have come off 10 minutes earlier than he did.
Yeah.
Noni Madueke has a relatively quiet game, but then scores. All of a sudden, he's playing with this swagger. And you take him off, and you bring on a Bukayo Saka who's clearly nowhere near fit enough.
Yeah.
So that's wrong. Victor Gyökeres...
Do you think that's wrong, though? Just to explore that one.
Yeah.
Like, bringing on Saka... I was watching the game, and I was watching it for a very different lens to the one you were watching it through. When I saw Saka coming on, I thought, oh, no...
But you were doing that based on what you know of Bukayo Saka, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But this is a guy who we were told a few days ago was going to be out until the North London derby, which was still 10 days away. Okay. And all of a sudden he's back in the squad and he's being thrown on. And I know the game was a difficult one to acclimatise to because of the intensity and the pace of it, but he was nowhere near the pace of the game. Victor Gyökeres, how he stayed on the pitch, I have no idea. How Mikel Arteta hasn't looked at that after 65 minutes and gone... That is not working.
Doesn't do anything.
I'm bringing Gabriel Jesus on.
Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do. I'm so bored of people trying to gaslight me and pretend that he brings others into play or his hold-up play is good, or obviously I was listening to it with the commentary on, which isn't something I do often because often I'm live. The commentary on, and I was like, I'm watching this, and my appraisal of Gyökeres is that he's one of the worst players on the pitch. And yet I felt like the commentary was very sympathetic towards him, very kind towards him.
Yeah.
Constantly focusing on the good that he was doing, the minimal good. it's getting to the stage where I think if it's Arsenal are going to have to win a lot of games, and I think they will. Just for the record, I still think Arsenal are going to win the league. You look at their fixtures, the home fixtures are against the teams that you want them to be against, and you basically everyone that you play away from home, the vast majority of teams that you play away from home, are all lower half of the league. So I still think that it's favourable for Arsenal. But if you don't win the league, it's going to be because your strikers aren't good enough.
Yeah, if we don't win the league, it's because we don't have the firepower to do it. And people often say to me when I make this point, the pushback I often get is, yeah, but we're the third best scorers in the league or whatever. And I say, yeah, but hold on a minute.
It's irrelevant.
Hold on a minute. If you score goals once you've kicked the door down and teams are coming at you, that's a completely different thing.
Also, a lot of your goals are scored by defenders' set pieces. It's not a reflection of your firepower.
Exactly.
It's not a reflection of your firepower. It's a reflection of your brilliance at set pieces.
And it's a reflection of the fact that others are contributing as well.
Also, when you play the most intense game. I think you're going to have a very intense game against Tottenham. I expect you to beat them, by the way. I think they have a rubbish side. But it's not going to be the walk in the park that it was. No. It's not going to be that.
Derby away never is.
Yeah, but if Thomas Frank was still there, I think you still win 5-0. Whereas it's getting to the point now where you're like, maybe, who knows? Who knows what they're going to be like on a day like that? You're centre forward on a game like that, and then you play Chelsea. The reason why, when we were kids, you would always find a way to beat us was basically Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Ian Wright, Kevin Campbell would find a way to beat us. You're looking at this now and you're like, when we play you even, you're a better team than us. But where we're weak, you're not strong. Yeah. So, we're not very good at the back. But equally, you're not very good in attack. So we could be all right.
And Arsenal are not very good in attack.
No,
and no matter how much any Arsenal fan tries to defend that, it's wrong.
There's nothing to defend.
There's not enough numbers. There's not enough output from any single one of Arsenal's forward options.
Did you see Jamie Carragher's team of the season so far?
No, I didn't.
He did his team of the season so far. And as he did it, it was an epiphany for him. He didn't realise. But he's doing his team of the season, and he's done loads, no bias. He's done loads of Arsenal players, right? 3 of the back 4 are Arsenal, 2 midfielders are Arsenal. I think the keeper was Arsenal. It's Arsenal. Going to the front 4, and he's putting players forward, discussing it. Perhaps this player, perhaps that player, perhaps this player. They finished. And they went, oh my God, this is the first time in the history of the Premier League that you would do a team of the season and the team top of the league have got none of the attackers even in contention. Yeah. Like, it's not like you go in, is it Martinelli? Or is it Morgan Rogers?
They're not even in the conversation.
No, they're not in the conversation. Yeah. It's like, is it... Yeah, I think you put Morgan Rogers in it. But you're not weighing up Morgan Rogers or Trossard. Morgan Rogers or Martin. They're not in the conversation. Yeah. No, and if Arsenal don't win the league, it's primarily because they bought Gyökeres and they didn't buy Julian Alvarez.
I agree that there's a problem in the attack. And I think if you're Arsenal, you have to wake up. You have to wake up. And it's for me, if we played well or to 70% of our capacity, 75%, whatever, I come away from that game at Brentford last night and I'm packaging it up as a good point. But the performance is so bad that I can't do that. And it's not the first time this season I've come away from a game feeling like that, where I've gone, we've got a point, but we didn't even deserve that today.
No, you could have got beat.
And it's worrying. And I just think it's a culmination of seeing that happen many times over the past 2 seasons that has got me to a point where I'm like, if we don't buck up our ideas here, we could throw this away. And if we were to throw this away, I'm going to say it now. I think the project that everyone kept saying is going to blow up and it's going to be massive, it could actually completely
combust,
disintegrate into nothing if Arsenal don't go on and achieve something.
Well, from this point, also, it's a very frustrating thing. It doesn't happen often. It happened to Tottenham. But it happened to Tottenham, right? You know when you are the best team in the country, but you don't win the league. Like the year Leicester won the league, Tottenham were the best team in the country. In fact, you could probably argue the year that we won the league, Tottenham were the best team in the country. But it counted for nothing.
Yeah, if you don't do it,
for nothing.
Exactly. Absolutely.